Hi everyone, this is the Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. And thought I would do a special, interesting retrospective here with you today on a review that is 10 years old at this point for an album that I think has grown to be a modern classic over the past decade, and that is Travis Scott's Rodeo. An important record for me, not only because I think it's really good, but on top of it, it was the record that really turned me into a Travis Scott believer, because everything Travis had done creatively, solo-wise at least up until that point, I was just not into at all. Even going back to days before Rodeo, it is not a mixtape I care for, though I can now squint and kind of see the vision given what Travis was able to accomplish on this following album. But yeah, given what a seminal project this is for Travis Scott in his artistic trajectory, in his growth, given how well I think it has aged, I thought it would be interesting to go back and essentially look at my glowing review of the record at the time and see what exactly I had to say about it, and if anything I was feeling on it at the time has, I don't know, maybe shifted a little bit. I guess we'll just have to see. Also, reviews that are 10 years old feel like such a lifetime away at this point. What was my review style even like back then? I can't even remember. Was I even doing reviews in English? I'm not sure. I don't know. Let's take a gander at the review and see what it's got. Ba-bam!
Hi everyone, Munch the Fan Tofu here.
Munch the Fan Tofu? That's a wild one. I was crazy for that one. And man, look at me. Haven't aged a day. Haven't aged a day.
The internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Travis Scott record, Rodeo.
Oh yeah.
Travis Scott is a Southern rapper and producer who sort of blew up
out
of nowhere as a Kanye protege, earning a few production credits on Kanye's last big commercial release, Yeezus.
Wow. It's kind of funny, the pacing of the review so far, just like the speed at which I'm talking feels like a little more measured and relaxed. Was I more chill? Was I more chill guy back in 2015?
Yeah. And after earning this Kanye West bump, Travis Scott did not take his time with releasing his own music. Right there in 2013, he had it ready. That Owl Pharaoh EP mixtape project. I thought this project...
And yeah, I did not like that one. I did not care for it.
It was like just wall-to-wall dull. And if Kanye was grifting any ideas off of Travis in the studio, they were being altered to the point of being nearly unrecognizable if they were landing on Yeezus. Either that or just given this really high gloss finish so that they sounded just a little bit more commercial project ready. I guess the Owl Pharaoh stuff, maybe the budget wasn't as high. I don't know.
Interesting. I feel like the edits are a lot more aggressive in 2025. I feel like we're going heavier on the editing. I think a lot of those statements would have still been said, but segmented up a bit, chopped up, so it's all kind of flowing a bit faster. No wonder this review's 23 minutes long.
Travis's following project, Days Before Rodeo, this was the big teaser mixtape bringing us to this Rodeo project. He did very little of the production on here, at least from what I can tell from the credits, which...
Yeah, because Travis was growing as a curator, Anthony. He was becoming a curation man. You know, that's kind of the thing about Travis. That was his big point of inspiration from what I can see in retrospect from Kanye. You know, he's trying to build himself up in the way Kanye did as like a director. Which, I mean, you have to kind of appreciate the era of Kanye West in which Travis Scott was working in and was influenced by most. It's not the, early DIYer, scrappy, up-and-coming producer Kanye. It is post My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy Kanye, where a lot of his strokes of genius are coming in as a result of him kind of pulling on and calling on the right people.
Why? What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be the superstar producer? Why are you not producing on your own records? I just didn't get it, because he certainly wasn't bringing it on the rapping and the lyricism and just the flow side of things. Travis wasn't really coming across as this superstar, really great attention-grabbing voice. As far as sound quality goes, Days Before Rodeo definitely sounded better, but At this point, I just didn't really see Travis's potential. Like with Days Before Rodeo and with Owl Pharaoh, I thought the catchiest thing Travis had written was that pretty cool straight up ad lib. Even with
Hey, don't forget it's lit, buddy. But yeah, straight up, it's true. I feel like straight up is. I mourn for the loss of the straight up era. I am frankly very sad that we're not really getting straight up in the way that we used to. I feel like things were better when we were getting straight up. The economy was stronger. The current media landscape wasn't so trash. You know, AI wasn't taking over. I wish we can go back to the time of straight up.
with his 3500 single, which featured 2 Chainz and
and banger
Future.
track,
I
banger,
thought the production
banger
was
track.
heavy. It was pretty luscious. Travis's bars didn't really
Luscious,
blow me away
Anthony.
or anything like that, but Future and 2 Chainz sort of did their thing. It sounded decent. The hook was definitely standout, but the song standing at 7 minutes, I think really killed its single potential. So admittedly, I wasn't really that excited for this project, but then I read into the production credits on this thing, which you can see here. And they are pretty impressive, as you can see. Some pretty awesome names listed out in this thing, including Wonder Girl and Pharrell. And then I caught the features list, which had Kanye West, even Justin Bieber, Quavo of Migos, 2 Chainz and Future. As I said, T.I. does some of the like really strange, dramatic spoken word bits on the album here. Juicy J and Toro y Moi, who Travis has done music with before, land on this record too. So interest peaked.
Really going through the production credits on this thing. I need to take more time to be really going over and listing out the production credits at the start of a review. Maybe that's a way I should be spending my time more when I'm covering records.
And while I don't think this record is perfect, I do feel like Travis has come into his own a great deal on this album. And I hear a specific idea and sound and kind of concept coming through on Rodeo. I think
that's kind of the thing with Rodeo that kind of blew me away about it. Like the amount of artistic growth and song structure and aesthetic cohesion across this record, comparing it to Travis's previous efforts, most immediate previous efforts, it's night and fucking day. However, I feel like what is sort of unfortunate with Travis Scott, though, creatively, is I think he kind of hit upon his sound. He hit upon this trend and redefined the face of trap music as we know it with this record, with Astroworld, so on and so forth. And then I think, save for some pretty experimental tracks off of his latest project, Utopia, he more or less kind of figured wow, I can just kind of coast on the same sound and vibe almost forever now without having to worry about switching it up too much. People will just consume this regardless of whether or not I'm actually putting a certain amount of artistic effort into it. Look no further than the fact that he just dropped that Jack Boys 2 record. And despite the fact that the vast majority of the material on the thing was trash, it had a really impressive 6-figure opening week as far as sales. So, again, 10 years later, it's interesting to see just still how dominant Travis Scott's branding and sound is, even when he is clearly not putting as much effort into the songs or anything when comparing it to what he achieved and what he did here on Rodeo.
Travis has essentially taken that new Atlanta sound from artists like Future and OG Maco and Migos, from Young
haven't thought about OG Maco for a minute. Rest in peace to OG Maco.
Thug and to an extent Chief Keef, all of the druggy lyrics, the trap influenced percussion, the kind of wavy slow-mo sounds, the auto-tune, the hedonism, the ballads, the singing, and also the kind of gimmicky ad-libs in the background. I think he's taken a little bit of a...
Anthony, don't forget about the trippy production. Don't forget about the trippy production. You did reference Future there, but maybe, I should have gone more into a DS2 direction, because I feel like this record and DS2 are kind of like the cutting edge for psychedelic trap, psychedelic mainstream hip hop.
The last A$AP Ferg album, Trap Lord, as well.
Good
with
record.
Some of the very cavernous production, some of the very deep and gorgeous reverbs that are on some of these vocals here. But mostly Travis is borrowing from and focusing on this new generation of Atlanta-based artists, and he's kind of grabbing their respective sound, which he's always been influenced by to a great degree, being from Houston himself. I mean, he's probably deep into the world of Southern hip hop. There's no doubt about that. So he's grabbing this sound and he's kind of elevating it to this really beautiful, artsy level. And really
eloquent there, Anthony. Real eloquent. I mean, also, can I just pause here to say, and I know this is not something that has changed. I say this with full self-awareness of who I am right now, standing before you in front of the camera lens. God, I'm a fucking nerd. I'm such a fucking nerd. I'm such a fucking nerd, man. Truly looking, acting, and talking like a nerdy ass boy with my old ass red crew neck. I miss that crew neck, man. I have no idea where the hell that thing went.
Making it kind of album worthy, like this style of music.
That's a bad terminology there, Anthony. I mean, this is not the first album to make trap style production album worthy. That's certainly a head ass thing to say. But I mean, I sort of get what I was kind of going for, because I think if there's like anything aesthetically that kind of sets Travis Scott's Rodeo apart from pretty much every trap album prior to it, is that there are touches in the production that, you know, have a cinematic sort of appeal to them. There's like a really grandiose kind of presentation and flow to everything going on, which, I mean, you know, is also certainly the case with Trap Lord, but, you know, is definitely increased quite a bit on Travis Scott's Rodeo over here. And you know, it sort of has, I guess, the flow and the makeup and the development of like a classic sounding album, you know, not so much like a mixtape where you're getting this barrage of different tracks and stuff like that. You know, it really does kind of like have again, like a cinematic flow to it. I'll correct myself there in terms of the way I phrase that.
I think has led to a lot of great singles, a lot of smash singles, a lot of club bangers, some decent mixtapes.
Oh
too.
Man, not the jittery edits. I thought those stopped earlier than 2015. Jesus Christ, Anthony, you going crazy with the jittery edits in 2015?
But rarely are these very same artists actually delivering commercial records that live up to the hype of these singles. Recently, I could think of Future's Dirty Sprite 2 as an example, which for what it was doing sounded like a very aesthetically cohesive record, kind of artsy in its own right with all of its very woozy, druggy, slow-mo sounds. But Future's singing and rapping and lyricism has its limitations. Future is not that great of a lyricist. He's not even really a good singer. The tracks didn't really develop in the way that you would want a good song to develop. But development is what Travis has plenty of on Rodeo.
Yeah, I mean, still to this day, I very much prefer Rodeo to DS2. It is what it is. I feel like a lot of the songs on there structurally are very like one note in comparison to Rodeo. Some of the choruses don't really hit for me, but I still can very much give it to Future for, you know, obviously like making one of the most significant trap records of the decade with this album, but also putting tracks on here that frankly, honestly, were like pretty much handing Playboy Carti the keys to the kingdom in terms of like, you know, developing the sound that he would go on to capitalize on.
Travis actually nabs the melody from Future's Rich Sex. Go back and listen to that track. And then listen to the second half of the song, Oh My, and this side. It's the same goddamn melody, but Travis actually extends it out a little bit and turns it into a tune and not just this redundant, dumbed down melodic phrase that gets tiresome by the time the song is over. The singing on this track, even though it is heavily auto-tuned, and on the first half with the song Oh My, it's very expressive. It's not like the auto-tune is just kind of covering up all the human elements of the voice. Travis uses auto-tune in a really effective manner throughout this record. Only in a few moments do I think it actually is to the detriment of this record. And this track, Oh My.
More jittery edits. I mean, you know, I will say, like, I do think it is true. The way Travis Scott was kind of utilizing auto-tune on this record, it was kind of a game changer. I will say that. Again, though it does kind of stink that he hasn't really developed his vocal delivery or his approach to auto-tune and a lot of things since having struck gold with this album. The lack of development is kind of disappointing a bit, but still he did, you can't deny he hit upon something with this record, and it really did truly work.
Decide actually features one of Travis's many beat shifts right in the middle of the song. And while in the past, I didn't really enjoy what he was doing with these beat shifts because we were just going from one weak idea to another weak idea. I think on this record, I actually started to enjoy it, not because the beat shifts were all that well orchestrated. Sometimes, like on the song 90210, they're kind of weak. Like we just kind of get this fade up of the next beat, seems a little, thrown together. But at least the respective halves, the respective sides to each song, the track we're transitioning from and the track we're transitioning to are good.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll say like 90210, very good track. A track that's definitely grown on me since then. Also, want to say shout out to Casey Hill on that track because her feature on that thing continues to be gorgeous and frankly legendary. But at the end of the day, like, the beat switches in and of themselves are not like a stroke of genius. I just think they started working better and started actually being an exciting thing in Travis Scott songs because the material you were hearing on either side of the beat switch was actually genuinely better. And sometimes what you would actually end up transitioning into would, again, sicko mode, lead to like really hype and exciting, almost like random moments. It's records like this and Yeezus that, kind of really, I think, changed a lot of people's perceptions of what popular song structure in hip hop could be in terms of, these random changes and linear progressions and so on and so forth. Obviously, for a long time, there's been hip hop that does exactly that. But as far as like mainstream releases go, that had an impact on the broader perception of these genres and trends, it's really records like this for sure.
I said it, and I seriously mean it. I think "Oh My" is a fantastic song and a great start to this record. It's so cavernous, it's so dark, it's so eerie. I love the "Oh my, oh my."
Okay, Anthony, you're going crazy there. You're going crazy, Anthony. No, I mean, I was listening back to the album in preparation for this like little reaction over here. And, I will say one thing that like really floored me a little bit about Rodeo, going back to it 10 years later was like just how dark and spooky some of the production, especially at the start of that record, sounded. It's like downright freaky. Travis sounds ghoulish on some of these tracks. And there actually is like a really intensely, again, dark, brooding vibe to some of the cuts on this thing that make it unique.
Ooh, it just gives me a chilly chill.
Oh my God, not the chilly chill. Anthony, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And how we kind of move from this just very dark, just nocturnal trap ballad to this very just pretty kind of glamorous trap R&B tune is very sweet. It's very cool. It's like a very warm embrace after a very dark, cold, freezing night. Both sides of this track are incredibly intoxicating, potent, pretty to the ear. I love the intricacies of the production. Some of the synth leads on the second half of this track are gorgeous, beautiful, just really great beats on this thing. And Quavo's contributions to the first half and the second half of this track are great too. Him and Travis actually have quite a bit of chemistry together. And
yeah, I mean, it's actually really awesome just how much the song kind of warms up on the Decide side of the song and how well Quavo complements both sides of the track. It's a really strong contrast that a lot of artists would not be able to effectively pull off, and Travis did with Flying Colors for sure.
A little bit more personal, which he does again on the second half of 90210, a moment where I actually feel quite a bit of heart coming through on Travis's lyrics over this very glamorous boom bap beat, which features these really awesome grand pianos. And I actually don't mind the kind of porn star themed ballad that kicks the whole track off. I actually think it's another example of Travis taking that auto-tune backed ATL balladry and kind of elevating it, because if you isolate everything else out of the tune, aside from the auto-tune vocals and what Travis is singing lyrically, the instrumental here is actually gorgeous. I mean, the spacious drums, the female vocals on this track are wonderful. I don't know who's singing.
Again, Casey Hill. It's Casey Hill. Casey Hill singing that.
They seem to be uncredited. If you want to put that down there in the comments, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, like unfortunately, like the credits on this record when it first came out were like not as clear as they should have been out of the gate, and there was like a lot of discourse and a lot of discussion at the time in terms of like, whoa, this vocal here is actually like stunning and one of the best like features on the entire album. We got to know who this is, but again, Casey Hill on this track.
Appreciated, but the vocals, the guest vocals on this track are wonderful. They sound awesome. It's kind of like I'm actually listening to this fusion of like a really tender, delicate art pop song and like, I don't know, like a Migos track or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, and again, I feel like that's a lot of the Kanye influence kind of ringing through, because prior to Travis and Kid Cudi too. I mean, I know I've mentioned Kid Cudi prior in my coverage of Travis Scott, especially with respect to Owl Pharaoh. But, you know, Kanye and Kid Cudi too, being two of Travis's biggest influences, and, you know, I should have been adding this at the time, you know, are well known for their genre fusions, for their aesthetic fusions, the creative ways in which they kind of like molded hip hop music with other sounds and styles. And Travis is just kind of doing that in his own way on Rodeo.
On the record, Travis is coming like dangerously close to perfectly embodying that whole idea, that whole notion of like high-end, highbrow, just high-class ignorance. Something I think...
Also, you know, just want to kind of state, and I'm not sure I'd go on to say this in the review, this is like something that was very trendy at the time and was very much like, you know, being thrown out there into the ether by guys like Kanye, who, you know, is kind of like trying to sell fans and sell audiences on the idea of, you know, take like really clubby, really ignorant, really straightforward, really like brash hip hop music, really braggadocious, in, you know, like the context of like a Cruel Summer and something like that. And just like make it sound artsy, make it sound real glamorous, make it sound like real expensive and shit like that. And obviously like Travis was borrowing from that in his own way.
Someone like Kanye has tried to
okay, Kanye. Whoa, I said it.
Of that, with songs specifically off of like the Cruel Summer mixtape, but I think Travis pulls it off maybe a little bit better, because while his instrumentals and his songs do sound very melodic and very fleshed out and artsy in a sense, his music still maintains like that street vibe, that street grittiness to it.
Kanye's Cruel Summer has, and you know, the Good Friday tracks and everything obviously like have many of them have aged very well. There are some amazing tracks off of Cruel Summer, but like as an entire record, as an album, as a vision, I definitely have to like, you know, give it to Rodeo for sure.
That I think sort of a more established industry rapper wouldn't necessarily be able to pull off, because they're not as close to that lifestyle, they're not as close to that background.
I had a lot of comments on this review, like kind of correcting me about like sort of Travis Scott's street credentials, which you know, again, I didn't sort of like personally know. I guess like it's something that aesthetically Travis was able to sort of like deliver more convincingly than maybe some of his contemporaries at the time. So, you know, I guess like fuck me for falling for it, I guess.
As someone like Travis is, he is just coming from that world, and the sound that represents that world is fresh in his mind because he's living it as a young.
I guess like in my defense, what I was more or less kind of like hoping to get at here, but like with probably like the worst way of phrasing it that I possibly could, was at this point in Travis's career, he was still a super young artist and hadn't quite been, I mean, as I just kind of discussed, industry poison to the point where he had sort of like lost touch with the underground and maybe what your average music fan might like or listen to or might want to create, per se. And his tastes and his artistry were being more driven by his experience as, again, an average music fan or a struggling musician, as opposed to, the panopticon of fame that you find yourself in when you reach Travis Scott's level of fame. And oftentimes when you hear a new Travis Scott song, it sort of feels like just a series of layered references to everything else he had done up until that point, as opposed to borrowing from sounds and inspirations and influences that at this point in Travis's career were much bigger and more influential and more impactful than him culturally. At this point right now, Travis Scott has more sway commercially and culturally than some of the artists who he pulled from predominantly on this project, honestly. So, again, it is like an issue that a lot of artists kind of find themselves in when they blow up to massive levels of popularity. And again, they sort of like lose touch with what is going on artistically and sonically beyond sort of like the world of sounds they've kind of like built their brands off of.
One of the other things that I like about the instrumental on this track are the little layers of guitars that are very quiet but add so much character to some of these instrumentals when they do pop up, kind of like in the last third of the 3500 instrumental, a track that I'm enjoying so much more in the context of this record, though I still wish it was a little shorter, a little bit punchier. Going deeper into the track list, we have the incredibly sinister track Wasted with Juicy J. I think it's really grimy. It's got a lot of different parts to it. I think there are maybe a few spots here that kind of feel like a bit of dead air with the instrumental and like not too much is going on lyrically, but still it's a pretty decent track at a very dark moment on the record. The song Pray for Love with The Weeknd is definitely a lower point on the record for me, but not because of The Weeknd, as some of you may assume. It's actually one of the few moments where I wish Travis let up on the vocal effects a little bit, because Abel is a really capable singer and he can definitely hold his own. He doesn't need to be so heavily layered in effects. It's definitely ear grabbing at the very...
I still kind of feel that way to this day, honestly. I do think Travis screwed the pooch a little bit with how he treated Abel's vocals on this record. His vocals on their own are fine. They're great. You don't got to do anything to them. I mean, while autotune is great and vocal effects are fine and there's nothing wrong with using them, I'm not like, this Luddite who's like, oh, if you're using this or using that, it's not real singing or it's not real talent, it's not real artistry. Of course it is. But also I feel like, part of the power of it is knowing when you don't need to use it. There are times when it's necessary. There are times where it helps. There are times when it's a little extra spice in the mix. There are times when you're not really doing much. You're not really helping. You're not really adding. You're not really fixing.
Still, though, I like the instrumental on this track, too. I like the dark building beat. Kind of reminded me of what Kanye has been doing recently on his own solo stuff, and sort of makes me think, is this the kind of artistry that Kanye wanted in his own music? And that's why we're kind of seeing it come to light on this record over here. Is this the sort of stuff Travis Scott was bringing to the table during those Yeezus sessions, or is this just something that he's picking up because he was in on those sessions? And obviously the influence that him and Kanye have going for each other, it's obviously a two-way street. I think we get back to more effective songwriting on the track Night Call with Sway Lee of Drummer's Ear. I'm not pronouncing that backwards.
Come on, Anthony. Say Ray Shremmerd. Say Ray Shremmerd, Anthony. Say it. Just say it, man. Say it, you little baby boy. Say it.
It is a pretty...
Oh my God. Why is that why? I saw this peak over here in terms of like, man, a lot of people watched this part or replayed it a couple of times. Why did this get replayed? Is it because of what I said about Kanye? Is it because I wouldn't say Ray Shremmerd? Is it because I'm burping? Everyone's replaying the burp? Why? Whoa, that was a pretty good burp, Anthony. Sick burp, buddy. Got to see that burp twice. You guys are sick. You're disgusting. You're burp-obsessed sickos.
Decent tune. I wish it had a grander intro like many other songs here do, rather than just kind of, fading in, which was a little bit of a disappointment. But this track does have one of the more winning choruses on the entire record. When the night calls. Yeah, I get that.
It's a bop. It's a bop and a half. It's a bop and a third.
There's not really too much to this track lyrically. It's not deep or anything like that, but I think it kind of takes this whole notion of, this late night hedonism and debauchery to this really kind of very pretty, woozy, intoxicating sort of aesthetic. Again, I push the idea.
Man, I swear, like back in the day, the frickin' mic I was using on my camera had a high pitched hiss going on in the background the entire time. I mean, I knew it was there. I was told it was there, but I didn't have another microphone that to me would eliminate the issue. And I was kind of coming off of another microphone that sounded even worse, honestly, before this review, if I can remember my microphone timelines correctly. Frankly, I've done a lot of reviews that sound like shit. I'll admit it right here. The sound production on the reviews has not always been great. And I apologize for that. I apologize humbly to all of you for having to put you through that. All 2.5 million of you, because surely no one would watch this review twice. Every single view on this is a completely original review. That's got to be the case.
That this is trying to make that hedonism, this is trying to make that ATL sound just sound a little more melodic, a little artsier, a little bit more refined.
Okay, no wonder this review is 23 minutes long. I'm repeating myself. I hit the microphone.
I think Kanye is coming off way more extreme than he was on some of those Yeezus tracks and on some of his recent features. This feature seems just like way more over the top than any feature he's done as of late, which in a sense I found refreshing, although it did kind of feel like a bit of a temper tantrum. But ultimately what does end up making this song a bit of a...
Oh man, don't get me started about a Kanye temper tantrum. Oh, little young 30-year-old Anthony. Fuck, I was 30 in this video. Look at this guy over here. That's a young 30. How was I 30 in that video? How was I 30 there? I look 30 now, bitch. I look 30 now. 40, 30, 40, 30, 40, 30. There you go. But yeah, man, if only young Anthony could have known the Kanye temper tantrums that we would eventually see. Maybe he could have saved him.
After this song, though, the hits on this album, I think, continue. The track Antidote, which does have this redundant little vocal melody, but I do love the beat, and I love how heavy and I love how bassy it is. Again, it's another woozy, intoxicating moment. It hits so hard, but it feels like I'm in the midst of a dream state. My one complaint about this track is that I think by the midpoint, we're really struggling for lyrics. We're really struggling for things to say. I don't do no honors. I get that we're not trying to say anything deep on this record, but it at least say something catchy or memorable or something. Still, there's...
I don't agree with myself here. I don't agree with what I'm saying. Sorry, I was like a little zonked out there, but I was kind of listening to what I was saying. And Antidote's a bop, man. Antidote's catchy as hell. Yeah, the verses may not be sort of like, built up with the flashiest, most interesting bars of all time, but I do actually think Antidote is a genuinely catchy song. Certainly catchier than a lot of tracks Travis has produced in recent years, catchier than freaking K-pop.
I like the song Impossible directly after, which is kind of like this groovy, alluring dream sequence on the record.
Impossible
like
is
a monologue for Travis, where he's talking about his dreams, his ambitions, his worries, his stresses. It's kind of like this weird little internal monologue moment on the record. And with the track Maria, I'm Drunk, we have this beautiful little vocal intro, and then immediately we go into this track with Young Thug and Justin Bieber, a song that for many is probably going to be the most hated on the record. Justin Bieber, Young Thug, potentially a train wreck. I mean, not really two names a lot of people want to hear on a record, but songwriting-wise, this is one of my favorite tracks on the entire album. Not only is the refrain of this track killer.
No, I mean, this track is actually fantastic, and Travis's chemistry with Young Thug on this song was so goddamn good that they were another bop on Pick Up the Phone, with Birds in the Trap, the follow-up to this record, which, I still hold to this day. Many of the tracks on that album just kind of feel like leftovers, less developed, less interesting leftovers from this album over here. But this Young Thug track is still for sure a highlight for me, with no question.
Thug's voice on this track is awesome. I think a lot of people shit on Young Thug because they're holding him up to this rapper rubric when he couldn't even be further from trying to attempt to live up to that standard. I just kind of see him as a singer.
I feel like this was kind of where Young Thug faltered on his new album. I feel like he should have leaned more into the elastic and melodic qualities of his voice more, and instead tried to convince us he was like maybe a little bit more of a rapper's rapper than we thought he was, but he's very much not. Look, Young Thug's feature run during this time period was frankly legendary, between tracks with Travis Scott, Jamie XX2. Like, Young Thug was really putting together some really impressive features around the mid 2010s.
Something about his voice that is just so dynamic and all over the place on this track that really just pulls me in. And Justin Bieber, when he comes on, it's Justin Bieber, I think he fits into the aesthetic of the record really well. I don't think he does anything on his verse that like Sway Lee wasn't doing earlier on the record. So if you just hate his verse just because it's Justin Bieber, then, I don't really know what to tell you. I'm not really in love with it. It's not a high point for me on the record, but he didn't stick out like a sore thumb or anything, which is maybe all I could have really asked for. Justin, he just wants to know what that booty do. And that dreary little piano line.
What is going on here? I'm talking about the dreary piano line. I do like the piano line on this track. It's my old editing space right there in front of the same standing desk, just moved to a different room. Man, I must have really felt passionate about that dreary piano line to the point where I was like, I gotta add a clip, bro, coach, put me back in. I gotta add this clip about about the dreary piano line or else.
And that freaking ascending bass line, that boo, boo.
Okay, wow. Go, Anthony. You're going crazy.
Good.
You're going crazy,
and the record
bro.
finishes off relatively strong, too. The very evil and melodic I Can Tell is haunting, very haunting. And the song Apple Pie is kind of like a warm goodbye, with Travis kind of saying farewell to his mother and his old life. And it's really just kind of a tune of becoming self-sufficient and going out there on your own and taking that risk and becoming your own man, really.
While Travis Scott was never like the most genius and most personal lyricist of all time, I do miss this element of his music when it seemed like he had more personally to reflect on. And it's something that I wish he was able to like lean more into later into his career. Some people would argue to a degree he does do that here and there. He's rapping about what his life is now, but still a lot of what Travis Scott says and does in a lot of his music these days does come across like very surface level and purely in service of, the features and the sonic fireworks he kind of packs into all of his songs and the, beat changes and so on and so forth. And it does feel like, there is like less time to reflect, even though he does like imbue his album cycles with like, this, especially with Utopia, like this BS around like, Utopia is all about a place. It's about a world where like, and again, it's alluding to something. It's kind of like gesturing to something, but ultimately like what Travis ends up saying or literally writing lyrically into his projects, like it doesn't really amount to or communicate much in terms of like what he wants the audience to project onto. And that's kind of the thing. Like, I feel like a lot of Travis's work these days, it's less about literally what he wishes to message and wishes to communicate, but it's more something that he wants the audience to just kind of project their own thoughts onto and find their own meaning in abstractly, which I feel like there are ways artistically of going about that can still be really profound and still be really intriguing. But in the case of Travis, it really does sort of like feel a little empty.
And even though I wish this album had a grander finish, in a way, it did kind of feel like a fitting cliffhanger. I feel like we kind of got a little bit of a picture of who Travis is and kind of how he's growing as an artist and sort of what he's trying to do. And T.I. does a pretty...
Yeah, it's not a blowout finish, but I do think it is a cute finish for the album. It's cute enough of a finish. You know, it's like the send off at the end of a letter, just to kind of close things out. It's a bit of a love letter to all of Travis's influences and favorite sounds and favorite artists he's working with at that point. It makes sense, I think, as an ending, even if it's not like explosive.
Pretty decent job at various points of this record, kind of enhancing that story and adding a bit of poetry here and there and adding a bit of drama. And at the very end of this record, kind of exposing to the audience exactly what the whole meaning and concept behind the idea of the rodeo is. And before I move into the...
Anthony at the editing desk again. Okay. All right. What am I saying here?
Moment of the review, I do want to mention that Flying High is another track on this record that I enjoy a lot too. Toi et Moi is featured on this track. And what a surprisingly creative and good and cohesive meld of Travis's and Toi et Moi's respective styles. This is like a sun-drenched, beach-ready banger, and the way Chaz's vocals kind of soar over the chorus on this thing, that sort of thing. They sound fun. They sound sweet. They sound great. And Travis just sounds so relaxed and laid back and charismatic on this track. And I love the bass and I love the twittering hi-hats on this thing.
The twittering hi-hat, man. I had a lot of hi-hat terminology going on at this point. Also, you know, shout out to Toi et Moi putting some good vocals on this track. Hopefully he's getting some fat royalties off of this cut. I'll say that.
It's a solid cut, man, and a nice kind of banger to help the last leg of this record. And,
okay, let's go.
Yeah, I mean,
what about the last leg? What about the last leg of this review? What's the last leg of this review doing?
I thought this record was really good. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, it's real good, Anthony.
Surprisingly good. I did not anticipate Travis Scott to come through with something that I really enjoyed as much as I enjoy as this thing. I often have been returning to this record since I've had it, and I've been like, do I really like this? Do I really like this?
I do.
Am I sure I like this?
I do.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure I like it. I think what Travis
with the Noi album in the background,
this
believe
ATL
it or not,
sound, this Southern sound right here on this record is very interesting. And I think he's doing a lot of these Southern artists, these newer Southern artists. I think he's doing a lot of these trap artists, a lot of these, you know, trap balladeers, a service by putting this sound to a full-length album that is, for the most part, enjoyable from front to back. A few lulls here and there, a few weak tracks here and there, but I think Travis put together a really solid project and did a great job of bringing on a lot of artists that are representative of this sound so that we have kind of like a communal celebration of this style, of this musical trend.
And again, one that feels like very rich and very psychedelic and very otherworldly. Again, this feels like an iteration or reiteration of what I was kind of getting at earlier in the review. And, you know, it's important to note, like, there's a difference between album craft, developing an album, coming together with a flow between all of your songs and thinking about how each song on a record contributes to an overall picture on an album. Does this track bring something to the table that other tracks on this album don't already? Is this song redundant? Does it pale in comparison to other songs on the record? Does this song, if we're listening through the entire album, create a boring moment? Does it create a hype moment? Does it transition us to another thing? Are these two songs right next to each other? Are they complementary? Do they flow in and out of each other really well? These are album craft questions, and Rodeo is an album craft album. There's a lot of purpose and there's a lot of thought, I think, going into this track list, especially with it being as trim as it is in comparison with a lot of Travis's subsequent works. And I feel like that's also something that has been a little lost in Travis's work since having dropped this record, because many of his other record track lists feature many more songs. Some tracks are shorter than your average song on Rodeo over here and less developed. And, you know, I think that partially has to do with like the way streaming treats music, the fact that maybe there's more competition to get onto Travis Scott albums with, you know, features and production and so on and so forth. And I'm sure he's an artist who wants to work with as many people as possible. You know, for an artist who streams historically as well as Travis Scott, you're only going to benefit by maxing out the amount of like, you know, tracks and time you could put into a project like this. So, you know, I mean, I get and I understand the incentives, even if at the end of the day, we do end up with like more bloated projects that are not as like, you know, high density in terms of just like pound for pound, all bangers, like pretty much all killer, no filler with a record like Rodeo.
Right here. And again, set to instrumentals and tunes that are a little more artful and a little more accessible and a little bit more intricate. I didn't really like his past two projects at all. And I feel like the difference between what he's done over the past few years and what he did here is like night and day. And some of the changes that he's made to his style and his sound have been very minuscule on some of these songs, but they've made all the difference. I'm feeling a 8 on this thing. Tran.
Man, I did that little vocal alteration there, maybe because I said decent at first and I kind of like wanted to change it to strong like last minute. I may even go a little harder on this score today. I mean, probably not a 10, but a little harder on this score if I were to redo it. And as far as like major talking points, as I kind of already mentioned, I feel like not only would I add everything that I had said now and maybe take out some of the redundancies if I was to redo this review, but I would definitely make sure to make better efforts of mentioning Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi, massive inspiration for Travis Scott, generally speaking. But yeah, there's the review. There's the strong 8 Travis Scott review. Transition?
Zishin.
Whoa, we zitioned over here. Damn, and that is an old that is how the end slate used to look. Those buttons, those clicks, those videos, they don't even work anymore. Can't even click on that shit now. Got the Yeezus review, got the DS2 review. There you go. Well, there we go. Obviously pre-yellow flannel too. Thank you very much for watching. That was my Rodeo review. Yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. You're the best. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano still reviewing. Wow. Crazy that I was reviewing back then, huh? Forever.